Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Garcia. I'm the product manager for Website Payments Pro and Virtual Terminal. And my partner here, Todd Sieber, is the senior product manager for the Payflow Gateway. Thank you all for attending today. Today, what we're going to walk you through is Website Payments Pro and the Payflow Gateway. We're going to kind of give you a little background on general credit card processing. And then when we're then halfway through, we're going to show you all the new stuff we did in 2011, walk you through our newly designed hosted pages, mini iframes, giving you a completely hosted PCI complete sole solution. So here's the overview. Again, we're going to cover the direct credit card payments pro. We'll talk about the gateway link. We'll talk about the features and what's new in 2011. So what I found in doing these before is a lot of times people are generally new to credit card processing. So I wanted to start you out with just kind of the anatomy of an online transaction. We start with a card holder who securely sends their card to a merchant. The merchant then securely sends their transaction to the payment gateway. And really the payment gateway ends up being your secure highway to the processing networks, which we see here. We have the First Datas of the world, Vitals of the world, PayPal as well. We have an alternative payment section. And when your transaction goes through the processing networks do is they send you to the Visa MasterCard backend system. From the Visa MasterCard systems, there's kind of two things that happen when the money gets funded. One, there's a funding that goes to the cardholder, the issuing bank, and the issuing bank would go back to the cardholder. But on the background, what happens is from the processing network, the money goes to the acquiring bank. So there's always going to be an issuer and an acquirer, and the relationship between the issuer and the acquirer is, will the card issuer, that's the bank whose card was in the customer's wallet, and they tend to get a kickback in the form of interchange. And I should also point out that anytime you take direct credit cards, a credit card with one of those logos, Visa, MasterCard, you always have to start by having an internet merchant account, right? So when you get an internet merchant account with your bank, effectively you prove that you are who you say you are, you prove you have a business, and then they do some checks, and then you get put on a Visa, MasterCard directory, and they say, hey, you are a real business. Then you can actually take funds with those card brands. With that said, my product, Website Payments Pro, what I do is I'm going to give you a merchant account automatically with PayPal, so you can take direct cards. You can also take PayPal form of payment. It comes with a payment gateway. So typically what we find is if you go directly to the bank says, hey, I'll give you your merchant account so you can take your Visa, MasterCard, but you're also going to need a way to get the transaction to the processing network, and they'll usually push you to a payment gateway. So I give you both. And when you use my product or use Website Payments Pro, what you do is you get your merchant account, and you're able to take direct credit cards, and you're able to take PayPal transactions on the same account. On the Payflow Gateway, what we have, the gateway is simply the secure highway, right, to the issuing banks. Gateway's been around for a dozen years, greater than a dozen years. It's super fast. It's less than 2 seconds per transaction. 5 nines on uptime. It's scalable, consistently pushing through 30% of all U.S. e-commerce volume, card-not-present e-commerce volume. That hasn't changed. And I'd say, 1, it's scalable, and then 2, it's saleable. Right? So if you're a reseller, half of our customers on the Payflow Gateway come through resellers. So we encourage resellers to sell the product, and feel free to talk to me later about becoming a reseller. What's nice about the payment gateway is, 1, you can use your own bank, right? So you might have existing banking relationships. And then 2, it's a fully customizable solution, right? We have hosted pages, we have a full API solution, we do anything from card-present swipe transactions to direct marketing type transactions. As you can see, we do 30% of all US e-com card-not-present volume. We have, anywhere from their top 100 websites to Royal Jordanian Airlines using the service. Oh, and I'd also say, hey, the last one's kind of key with the payment gateway. You can accept the credit cards, you can checks, ACH, and you do everything, all the PayPal stuff you can also do with this one API. And what we're here to do is we're going to talk to you about, as a merchant or as a developer, I would say, hey, Payflow is probably your single best integration point. If you use Payflow as your integration point, you can take credit cards with us as a bank, with any bank that you want. You can still take PayPal, you can take checks. And if you, as a developer, start with Payflow, you can integrate once. You can add all of our value-added services. You can move to PayPal as your bank, or you can move back to any other bank that you might want, depending on if you get a better deal or not. So we're here to say, hey, if you are a developer, which I hope most of you are, I would strongly encourage starting your development with a Payflow solution. Since it's a tech thing, since it's a developer thing, I wanted to say, hey, look, it's all simple, name, value, pair. I mean, we have SOAP, we have iPayment, we've got all SDKs for everything you need, but it's pretty simple. It's just send, receive. On the left-hand side, this is what a PayPal name, value, pair string looks like. On the right-hand side, this is what a Payflow name, value, pair string looks like. Delimited, stuff you've clearly all seen before, not rocket science. And then now, I'd like to transition into what's new. So we've done a redesign of Payflow, and the reason we've done this redesign is, well, PCI has been really hot, right? So PCI, people don't want to store sensitive data on their own. So what we've done is we've tried to, well, what we've done is we've created new templates. So all sensitive data is entered on a PayPal site, our hosted site, or on a mini frame, so they stay on your site instead of being redirected to ours. Because most gateways currently, what they do is, hey, if you want us to do the hosted checkout for you, you have to redirect them to my page. I'll kind of make the page look like your page. You can retain the look and feel. But the feedback was, hey, I don't want to store the sensitive data, and I don't want people leaving my site at all. So as you see, we've created little mini iframes for you. They pop up on your page. The customer never leaves your site. All the sensitive data is input on our page. We collect all the sensitive data. Thereby, we're giving you a fully PCI solution. For this year, we are releasing this for the Gateway and Pro in the US. We will also do this for Canada and Australia on the Gateway solely. As next year, the plan would be to release this globally, hit a bigger footprint. On the new stuff, I'd like to have Todd Sieber take over. So Todd, my great partner, is the one who's designed what's new, these hosted pages, and I will let him show you how to integrate.
The responsibility off themselves. So we're doing a few things here, and the first thing is, our old Payflow Link product, which was a hosted solution that we've had for years. We gave it a facelift. As Dan said, we're changing the way that we do integrations, and the reason why he was talking about using Payflow as integration is because it gives you the best of all the worlds. So one integration, you're done. You don't have to maintain a bunch of APIs on one side, and then every time things change or add something new, you have new APIs. It's just name, value, pairs, one string, very simple integration. Your merchants can go from their own bank to PayPal, from PayPal to their own bank, back and forth, and all it is on ours is just a flip of a switch. The beauty of using PayPal, too, is it's a lot flexible that way. You can pretty much get everybody. We have built-in unilateral EC is now built into it. So basically, everyone that is on the new Payflow product here will have EC by default. Basically, you just give us an email address. You're done. That's it. If you have a PayPal account, the merchant is already tied to it. If they don't, they get an email that says, hey, someone just paid you using PayPal. Go create yourself an account and get your funds. So again, on the page, it's all pre-integrated for you. So again, from a development standpoint, it's very simple for you guys, easy to maintain, easy to add. there's this whole buzzword out there called tokens. Again, this is the whole PCI thing where people don't want to store credit card data or personal data anymore. So there's this whole buzzword on the market called tokens. Technically, the gateway's done tokens since day one. We just called them reference transactions. So now we're going to call them tokens. That's what everyone wants to hear. But we've added a new kind of token here, which we'll talk about in a bit. Also, as Dan said, on the gateway, for those of you that might or might not know, we do support card swipe, so you can do card present. We both will support unencrypted and, beginning next year, encrypted swipe readers. We support telecheck, ACH if you want to accept checks outside of credit cards. And right now, about 22 different processors, mostly US, and again, looking to go international starting next year. So again, we're talking about the PCI compliant thing because that's kind of really what the whole thing is that we've been seeing in the marketplace for most people that are doing direct credit cards. Again, basically it's a pretty simple 4-step thing here. You make an API call to create a secure token. Now this secure token is different than the reference transaction token. Basically what it is, you're going to take all the data that you've obtained, you're going to send it to us behind the scenes, and then you would redirect to our hosted page, and we'd display the hosted page. So traditionally you would have a packet of data that you'd put in a forum post, which would consider signatures and API stuff and names and addresses and amounts and all that kind of stuff. We found that people like to get in there and play with that stuff. The bad guys out there, the hackers, try to hack it and try to do things. So we just eliminated all that. Basically, you do an API call behind the scenes, you store all that data, and all you do is just call the hosted page with 2 lines of code in your forum post, and you're done. And then we'd redisplay everything as you need it. And then again, if you want to do follow-up transactions using the API, you would. That would be the captures, the credits, the voids, those kinds of things. And again, reference transactions if you want to recharge the card. Traditional way, or the way of doing a secure token now, again, as I mentioned, all the details, the amount of the transaction, billing, shipping, that kind of information you would send to us. The traditional way of how it used to work is up there. You would just, a typical forum post, and again, you'd send login, partner, amount, type, and all this other detail in a forum post. Now, like I said, you do an API request, and you basically have a couple new values there called create secure token, a secure token ID. To generate a token. Secure token ID is just a unique ID that you create for the transaction. And again, as Dan mentioned on Payflow, for those of you that have never used it before or seen it, it's name value pairs, but it's not name value pair APIs. It's just name value pairs. You just have one long string of data, put a bunch of name value pairs in there, and just post it to us. So it's just a standard HTTP post. Don't need an SDK, right? There's nothing to it. You just add some values in there. You can see in the red, you got the create secure token ID. We give you back a token, and then basically, if you want to modify any data you would do in the configuration section of Manager, which you'll just see a screenshot here. And then later today at 3 o'clock, we'll do a little demo, and you guys can play around with it. So here you can see calling the hosted page now is what you're sending to us is a token that we sent back to you and the secure token ID. So all the other data, the amount, the billing, the shipping, any of that data is no longer part of the forum post. It was all sent, again, through an API call in the back end. And then anything gets displayed up on the hosted pages. And again, there's additional values that you can send in the name value pair if you want to. So an example here, if you did a authorization or a sale, you would just send the data, send the token, or actually what I was going to say, you do follow-on transactions would be API calls. So for those of you that know the Payflow product, traditionally Payflow Link was a hosted solution, and Payflow Pro was a API-based solution. What we've really done is we've combined the two products together, so now it's just Payflow. From a marketing standpoint, it's still Payflow Link and still Payflow Pro, and really the difference is if you're going to have a Payflow Link account with either your own bank or PayPal as your bank, you have EC on, and you have PayPal branding on the hosted page, and you cannot turn it off, and you cannot do Austin sales through the API. On a Payflow Pro account, it's a little bit higher priced. You can turn off EC, you can turn off the PayPal branding, and you can do awesome sales through the API if you want a white label. And again, one of the other things for people that know Payflow, we can now do an inquiry call with a secure token. And this would kind of be used in a more like a card present scenario, where even card present people want to be PCI compliant. They just don't want to hassle with the whole PCI thing. So in this aspect, someone would swipe or someone would create the order, pop open a browser window in the application, swipe it, right? Because that page would be our hosted page, obviously. Swipe it, and then basically do an inquiry call using the token to get the results of that transaction. And again, it just, as you can see, it's pretty simple to send in, and you just get name value pairs back and tell you what happened on that transaction. And then again, reference transactions are quote unquote tokens, token transaction. All we do is you just send in what we call ORG ID there, which is actually the transaction ID of the transaction, and basically the new dollar amount, any other additional data that you want to send us. And basically what we do is we've already stored all the credit card data for you, so you're referencing an old transaction, and we're going to rebill it for you. You can also create recurring billing profiles. Again, on Payflow, just like on PayPal, we have a recurring billing service. So again, you can create these profiles, and we do all the billing for you on the credit cards or on PayPal transactions. Things about secure token. It is limited, has a lifetime of 15 minutes. It can only be used once, and again, it's just to keep people from trying to hack it. The secure token ID must be unique. Your account credentials, which are still very simple, user, partner, password, and user fields, are sent in the background but can't be sent as part of the redirect. You're always going to get a length tag, and again, this is for people that know Payflow. You're always going to get a length tag back because it does have some special characters in it. Account and expiration date cannot be sent because the idea is, hey, you're supposed to be using the hosted page to obtain the credit card data, not sending it to us. Again, it's for the PCI thing. And then again, only awesome sales can be used on it. And as Dan said, this is kind of just down and dirty, quick screenshot of what the basic page would look like without you doing without you doing any changes to it. In the third one here, you have you got Pay by PayPal all by itself, kind of expanded. Then you have Pay by credit card in the middle, and then Pay by check here. Check can either be ACH or it can be telecheck, which is a guaranteed check. And again, we'll be adding Bill Me Later next year and other payment options as time goes on, all on one page. And so again, instead of you having to make all these multiple integrations to like a Bill Me Later, this, that, whatever, we do it all for you. You make one simple call to us and you get everything. There we go. So PayPal Pro, Website Payments Pro, Payflow Pro in general now. Again, is a leading way for merchants to take both direct credit cards and PayPal payments in one easy integration. So in other words, you don't do a name value pair and then an EC integration. You just Payflow, you get it all. It works with either PayPal as your bank or as the merchant can have their own bank. And again, it allows merchants to go back and forth. We got the hosted pages, and we're also doing some other stuff next year about allowing people to do browser redirects and things like that. Again, for all PCI related stuff. For existing Payflow users out there, for a link merchant, there's not much changes if they want to implement the secure token. Of course, that's a quick code change. For a pro merchant, they've never used a hosted page before, so again, it's a little bit of change there, but the integration is pretty simple. And that's about it. And then like Dan said, just one concluding thought was, again, I'll bring up the reseller piece. On the gateway, we do have a reseller thing, and one of the things that we do is because we're kind of unique that we have both PayPal as a payment method and direct credit cards. We actually, if you become a reseller and you say, yes, all my customers are going to be using EC or have EC on, we actually give you the gateway at no charge. Right? So you can either pass it on as a value add to your customers and not charge them for any gateway fees, or you can charge them a gateway fee yourself and make a little extra cash yourself. So again, if anyone's interested in a reseller thing, if you're going to sell an application and you want to sell kind of a bundled package with a merchant account from PayPal and the gateway and all that, we can talk afterwards. So, all right, questions? The mic is coming.
Yeah. Two questions. If you're talking over the phone with a customer and take down their credit card information, can the merchant enter it in, or is that a PCI restriction?
No, because it's basically a virtual terminal. A virtual terminal is a hosted solution. And on the gateway side of the house, and I'm not sure about VT, yeah, you're not storing sensitive data, but on the gateway side of the house, you'll not only will be able to type it in on a phone order, but it'll also support swipe.
Okay. And second question, I didn't see how the hosted page gets posted back or is aware that the transaction is over.
So basically what happens on the hosted page is it's a standard redirect. We display the hosted page, and as a couple of the screenshots earlier, it can either be a page on its own where you can put your little logo on there and change all the colors and the backgrounds and the fonts and all that to give it the look and feel of your site, a typical hosted page, or you can do the iframe, right, which kind of buries it within your own page. And then what happens is once the transaction is actually processed, you'll tell us where you want to send the customer back to. In the profile. Yeah, you'll tell us where you want the customer to get sent back to, and at the same time we post back behind the scenes the results of that transaction. You just grab that post, display your receipt page, and you're done. Yes, and again, 3 o'clock, we'll have a little demo run that you can play with. You guys can create the new accounts, because it's not really released to the general public yet. But you guys can create these accounts and play with them. So, any other questions? Right there.
Good, because I have...
Yeah.
So I have two questions. The first is, what kind of anti-credit card fraud auditing, verification, protection services do you offer?
So if you use PayPal as the bank, it would be the traditional PayPal risk model, which Dan can talk more of. If you use the gateway and it's a BYOB thing, Payflow does have a fraud service that we're actually going to be breaking out next year, and technically it has two pieces. It has what's called basic fraud and advanced fraud, and we're looking at giving the basic fraud as just part of the package. And again, it can do things like geolocation, IP, and all this stuff. Plus, we have a whole laundry list of things that we're going to be adding next year to basically help with the whole fraud issue, to be able to catch it early and try to mitigate it and all that. So,
is there a better session for me to ask this question at, or?
Yeah, we can talk. I can give you my card and we can talk about it.
Okay. And my second question is, what's the process for adding new cardholder descriptors? Like if you need a lot of those, or you can't anticipate what all you'll need?
Card descriptors, you said?
Yeah, exactly. Like so, different kinds of sales can involve different kinds of line items on the cardholder.
Right. So
statements.
on the gateway side of the house, and more of a BYOB, what we call BYOB, bring your own bank. We support full level 2, full level 3 purchase cards, and we support card descriptors on the processors and cards that support them.
But what's the process for setting up new descriptors?
Well,
say you start selling a new product, you want a new line item to appear on cardholders' credit card statements. By what means do we communicate that to PayPal, and is there a process,
So if you use your own bank, you can set a dynamic soft descriptor. You set it up with your bank. If your bank allows it, they set it up with the processor. And on a per transaction basis, you can change the soft descriptor. Typically, what we see on credit card statements, what's allowed by an issuer is there's a DBA. It's 19 to 23 characters. Yep. You have to put a phone number. So we do support dynamic soft descriptors when you bring your own bank. On my product, when I'm the bank, when you establish your PayPal account, you give me a customer service phone number and your business name. And that business name remains static. So if you had different lines of business and you wanted different business names to show up on end customer statements, we'd say open different accounts, different PayPal accounts for those different lines of business.
And the charges for each of those accounts that you would set up, or?
Well, and I was just going to say on the gateway side of the house, if you have your own bank, The soft descriptors are dynamic, which means you would send in the soft descriptor with the transaction. So you could have one account, but then end up with 10 different names on customer statements because you would tell us what you want us to send to the bank. Right, but again, it's processor specific and related. And then going back to I think your comment about line items, again, that's level 3 purchase cards. So if you're accepting purchase cards, then that would be with BYOB, your own bank, like with having taken an Amex or something like that purchase card. If you send us in those line items, they will then show up on the card statement too.
But in general, changing the business name, the DBA name, the merchant descriptor on a statement, it's kind of rough. If people don't recognize it, you're going to get chargebacks. People, as soon as they don't recognize it, bam, they're going to hit it. So be careful with dynamic soft descriptors in general, I would say.
You mentioned a session at 3 o'clock. Where is that?
I'll have my bad.
And what's it called?
So Todd will get that info for you, but all the hosted pages stuff, all the new, within 20 minutes, we will have you guys do all the code yourself, completely easy. And I'd actually go back to the last question, the other gentleman, when you talk about fraud. So we do have 2 fraud services. So we have a fraud service on the PayPal side. Call it fraud management filters. We have 17 filters. You say, hey, this is my high dollar amount. I don't want to take transactions from this country, from that country, GeoIP. In addition, what you get is we have a special filter we call the PayPal risk model. So the same way PayPal applies risk to its own P2P transactions will allow you to leverage that same risk model, right? We think we do a pretty good job. But again, hey, if we trust you, we can say, look, you can determine risk on your own, and if you want to roll with us, use our risk model.
Does it flag it or kick them out?
You can review, you can flag, accept or deny. Pretty standard stuff. Everyone's going to do the same thing, but it's we have both a flag and a review and straight up deny.
The Tech Playground Stream 2.
It's going to be exciting. 20 minutes, you're done. You'll have all the code done. You're not going to have to, how do I implement PayPal and direct credit cards? How do I add BML? It's just going to be done for you. Simple little cut and paste.
Right, next question.
Yeah, Todd and Dan, you mentioned a single API. Does that also support adaptive payments?
No.
Not as of yet. Yeah. And it's funny. We've had a lot of questions on adaptive payments and a lot of business models where someone's going to give me $100 and they have to give it to 5 to 10 people. Adaptive payments are awesome to do that, but there is the potential sometimes that one person might say, I really want to accept this $10, but you know what? I'm not willing to open up a PayPal account. Now, in that case, you might still decide to go with PayPal as your bank with Pro or someone else and issue a non-reference credit, right? So, hey, I understand, in the UI you can say, look, are you sure you don't want to open up a PayPal account to claim your money? If so, you can pop up a little box and say, okay, here's give me your credit card number and I'll just send this money to your credit card account. So, it's a question that's come up maybe 5 times in the last 2 days. All right.
Quick question. Todd, I think you mentioned that your transactions are encrypted and that lasts about 15 minutes. Was that accurate? You talk about tokenization.
Yeah, actually what I was saying is that secure token call I was talking about is just taking all the data that you know about the transaction at the time before you display the hosted page. You send that with an API call and we'll store all that. And then all you do is just send us the token. And again, the idea is that we've just seen over the years where the hackers will get into a forum post, they'll do view sources in someone's browser, and they'll start picking apart pieces in there, and they'll try to hack it, and they'll try to try to change the dollar amounts, or they'll try to do things like that. The idea is we just said, we're not even going to deal with this anymore. Let's just stick it in a database. You send us a secure token, then we, behind the scenes, pull all that data so no one even sees that data anymore.
So for reference calls, if I come back and want to do a refund or a recurring billing type customer, do I as a merchant give you a token number or is it the credit card number?
So again, that's where I mentioned that the whole buzzword in the street now is tokens, and we call them reference transactions.
Got it.
So our token is different than what the street token is. The street token is a reference transaction. So if you charge someone $100, and let's say you're going to give them back $50 now, you would do a credit for the $50 using the transaction ID of the $100 sale. So you're referencing that. So our token really is the transaction ID.
Right.
right? Where nowadays a lot of places will just give you this random token. Ours is a transaction ID, which is the same one you can go into Manager and look it up and view it and all that, and we just find it's simpler that way than to add one more field in there.
So the first time you present the credit card transaction or the end buyer enters their credit card, it's going to be on our hosted form, our secure hosted form. We store all the sensitive data. If you have any follow-up transactions, you're just going to say, I need you to run a credit, and here's the original transaction ID, or I need you to run this additional sale, and here's the original transaction ID. Don't keep any of that stuff in your database. You keep the tokens, you keep the transaction IDs. That's all you need.
Yeah, so on that note, one of the things that I'm adding beginning next year too is for people that are currently storing credit card data and want to offload it, they can just send it all to us in a new call, and basically a new name value pair string, and we'll give them a token for that data that they can then turn around and reference later on. So we'll just, in that way they can then purge all that data from their database once they've sent it to us. So they don't even have, you won't have to do any transactions to do that. You just say, here, this data store for me. And it's, going into more of a kind of like a vault concept, which would be the first stepping stone of, where we're going in the coming time, which that will come later.
Yeah, we're moving towards make it as safe as possible, make it as easy as possible.
Through your website UI, I have access to virtual terminal. I should also be able to do a non-reference credit through the website. It shouldn't be limited to API calls only.
Well, for Pro or for Payflow, yes, you can do a non-reference credit through virtual terminal or the API.
You can?
Yes.
Through Payflow with your own bank.
No.
With PayPal as your bank,
yes.
It is determined by, I have a risk department, so some merchants are given the ability to do non-reference credits while some aren't.
Through the website?
From virtual terminal, correct.
From virtual terminal. Who do I speak to get that approved?
Yeah, so it's a little different. When PayPal is the bank, what we say is, hey, I don't want to let you blindly give money to someone unless there was an original charge. So if I have a buyer who pays $20, then I can give him back the $20. I can reference the original transaction and give money back. Generally, what we don't like to do is, hey, I just want to give him 50 and give him 50 and give him 50.
No, but a very common use case is when you need to refund an original transaction, but above what the transaction was. For example, the transaction was $20, you need to refund $27 to cover, for example, return postage or whatnot.
Yes, so that's typically when PayPal is your bank, that is a risk decision. So it's a policy decision. So everyone's account might act slightly different. So
it is possible to get that done through virtual terminal?
Absolutely.
Who do I speak to?
You can speak to me.
Perfect.
It's going to cost you, though. So, and then on the gateway side, or just if you have your own bank, non-reference credits are not an issue because the bank's taking the risk, right? But we turn that feature off by default because that's one of the biggest things that a hacker does. So if a hacker has a keylogger on someone's workstation and they were able to get hold of the person's credentials to their Payflow account, and the person didn't do what they were supposed to do and they're using the same credentials on their website too, now the hacker can go in and make API calls. And what they basically do is they run a bunch of stolen credit cards through the account and they turn around and credit their debit bin cards that they got issued from some banks and take the money and run, right? So we turn, even on the gateway, we turn that feature off by default and have people call us to request to turn it on because of there's more fraud happens that way than the people that actually truly do need it.
And actually, for sure, we support it. I remember signing off on it a couple of years back. In the UI. Actually, for sure, we do it in the UI. I remember signing off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Couple questions on the schedule for this being in production. You mentioned it's deployed in the U.S. first. I have a U.S.-based service, but people from international are doing registrations on our U.S. site. Is that supported now?
So, well, it depends. So as long as your credit card, that buyer's credit card has a Visa MasterCard logo on it, we take it.
Okay.
Right?
And the second question was, at what point in time are existing implementations going to have to move to the token-based implementation?
You're talking about Payflow integrations?
Yeah.
We're not going to force anyone to move yet. We would like to. But we're probably looking a year plus out before we start to push people to make. And the integration change, when since you've already integrated with Payflow, it's not really difficult. So the change that you have to do is actually fairly easy, right? So, but it's nothing we're going to force you, at least for probably the next year.
And the roadmap is full of carrots, not sticks.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Can you say something about the charge for a check transaction? Is it cheaper than a credit card transaction?
So an ACH transaction, depending on what you're doing, the basic cost of an ACH transaction is about 50 cents, regardless of the dollar amount. The disadvantage to an ACH transaction is that delay. There's possible reversals, and you have to wait for the funding to happen. So it's a little more work on your end compared to taking a credit card, right? Because you have to go and do inquiries to say, hey, did that check get funded now? Okay, now it's transferred, and then wait for the money to transfer and all that. But for people, B2B, things like that, they don't traditionally use credit cards. A lot of them will just move money between it, and that's where the ACH piece comes in.
If you're doing digital goods, if you physically ship a good, if you're doing checks, if I'm running a business, I'm going to want that check to clear. Yeah. So instead of giving you your product instantly, like I would with a credit card, as soon as I get that auth code, I know that money's as good as gold. I don't know about an experience where I say, okay, you paid by check and it was cheaper for me, and
that's
maybe 5 days I'll get back to you and tell you.
Usually checks are done for more B2B, but for B2C they can be done too. And one of the things that on the gateway we support is telecheck. And what telecheck is a guaranteed check. So they would charge you a rate just like the credit card would charge you, but if someone doesn't have a credit card and they want to use a check but you want to get paid right away, then you would pay that fee to telecheck because they're going to guarantee that check and pay you regardless of what happens to that check.
And for
so there's two ways of doing it.
We'll call out that's much higher than the credit card rates that you would see, but talk to telecheck directly.
Yeah.
Hi, thanks. I want to go back to the dynamic soft descriptor. You said that that's up to the bank, not the gateway?
Okay, so when you use the gateway, so you would establish that with the bank. You talk to your bank, and they'll talk to the processing network that they have you on. And with that processing network, you got to make sure they flip a flag that your account's enabled to do dynamic soft descriptors. And then on a per transaction basis, you would send us something in the API. And
your merchant name value pair, or
name value pair.
It's merchant DESCR.
Yeah. I mean, there's a variety of them. I mean, if you're doing Amex Direct, Amex has a whole bunch of fields that you can change, including the billing address, the name, the phone, the email. So, and every processor and every bank is different. So.
But it's the bank, not the gateway or the processor that we have to talk to.
Well, you start with your merchant bank, and your merchant bank gives you the account with the processor. Remember, the processor doesn't really hold money; it just kind of comes in and kicks it out. So, the processor really has to be configured. You don't get to talk to the processor except through the bank, and then you leverage us. And then you say, okay, everyone's turned it on properly, and then we go, okay, here's a name value pair to send. And then we do a little testing.
So basically, once you've enabled soft descriptors on, if your bank supports them, which means quote unquote the processor that the bank is using supports them too, then what would happen there is like your merchant of record name might be My Website Inc. But then you have a website that's My Website Plus, and My Website something else, and then but you all want that to funnel into the one merchant account. Each of those, on our end, you would just send the name of each website as the merchant descriptor, and that's what would show up on the statement.
And let's be clear, that descriptor, there's clear rules. That needs to be your DBA. That's your doing business as name. So I can't go charlie.com on one and then tommy.com, because the associations will get pretty upset, and your bank will let you know that's foul.
I just had a quick question about how would a consumer want, if they have a preferred credit card and we want to be able to remember that on our end, but you're maintaining all of the sensitive information on your end. How that would be done. Would we be storing some kind of a token in our database or something that we could use for preferred credit card or default credit card?
So not this year. But on the roadmap, I think Todd talked about what will happen is we will build the vault. I mean, in our In our long-term roadmap, we will build the vault. The vault can store any sort of sensitive information you have. You can drive marketing campaigns, but potentially you can build a wallet. And you might say, hey, for credit card number 1, here's their Amex card. And credit card number 2, here's their signature Visa. And 3, here's their debit card. Once we build that, then we have the potential for you to say, hey, I want you to charge this card, and I want you to use funding source B, the signature Visa.
So right now what you could do is you could kind of do the same thing yourself. So even though we've obtained the credit card data on our end, what we're going to send you back is we're going to send you back the last 4 digits of the credit card number, the expiration date, and the type of card, right? So you could just store those 3 pieces of information, and then on your page you can say, well, do you want to use credit card 1, 2, or 3? And you just show the last 4 digits with the expiration date and your Visa, MasterCard, whatever. You allow them to choose one. And then what you've also stored along with that data is the reference ID, the PNREF, for that when that card was originally used. And then you would send us that reference ID, and then we go pull that card and we use it. What Dan's talking about, the vault concept, is basically you create a profile for one of your customers, and then you would store everything on their billing addresses, shipping addresses, all that data, right? So you don't have to store any of that anymore. All you would store is the indexes to that data, right? And it eliminates you having to store any data like that now. So
does that reference ID not expire when you use it 6 months later?
So it actually, right now, it expires in a year. So usually what I tell people to do is if you're going to hold it, a year comes up, right, to just go do what we call a $0 auth. To validate it, to make sure it's still good, and then store the new reference transaction. But part of what I'm doing the first part of next year is extending it out to 3 years. So it'll be there for 3 years. After 3 years, or nowadays, really even after 1 or 2 years, most credit cards are expiring before that now, just because of the way the whole industry took a dump. So a lot of card holders now, they only get they get a new card every year. So, but we will extend it out to 3 years.
So for at least a year, it's safe.
It's safe to, yeah. There's no guarantee that the card will go through a year from now, right? But you'll be able to pull that data for up to a year. 13 months, actually, but I just tell everyone a year. So, any other questions?
Okay, one last question.
One last one?
We have time for one last question. See the red flag back there?
So one of the challenges of my client is I maintain a list of people who have registered. You have a list of transactions that have been processed, and then the merchant bank has their reconciliation statements, which are crap. Is there anything that I'm missing that we should be doing to help make sure they can reconcile these 3 things?
If you use PayPal as your bank, if you use my product, there's one place. You go to one place, and we do all the math for you. And really what's nice about at least PayPal, we don't nickel and dime you with chargebacks. We don't have bill backs. We got a flat fee. You either pay 2.1, 2.5, 2.9 based on last month's volume. There's no downgrades. We keep it simple. It's an all-in-one solution. It's completely simple. If you've done this before, you've read a bank statement, and you got to hire somebody like me who can read through 20 pages of gobbledygook to tell you what your actual rate is.
To answer your question, though, honestly, to answer your question, basically, yeah, it used to be easy in the early days, right? Because you did a $100 sale, you would go to your bank and you saw a $100 sale, and then at the end of the month, the bank would take out all the fees. It was very easy to reconcile. Nowadays, again, the banks take out the fees right off the top because, hey, that's money that they put in their pocket, right? So the reconciliation is always a nightmare, right? And there's no easy way around it. We are working and looking at working with a few banks to try to pull that together. So you can even go into Manager or whatever and see some more data for reconciliation, but it's not an easy thing to do, because we don't control those fees, or what he's talking about, PayPal would control the fees so they can give you better reconciliation reports, but with a BYOB, every bank is different out there, and there's no rhyme or reason. So it's up to the bank to actually give you like the gross amount and then a net so you can reconcile, but that's not what they always do.
So we sincerely thank you for coming to our session today. We encourage you to show up at 3 o'clock.
At Tech Playground, Stream 2.
Cheers.